Hello everybody, welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. When discussing families that are considered royalty in the music business, we think of names like the Jackson 5 and the Bee Gees. But if you want to identify the most consistent, prolific and enduring musical family tree, virtually none can compare to the great Marley clan. This musical dynasty, founded by the great Bob Marley, has been in our consciousness for 6 decades and continues to break new grounds as the third generation keeps coming into its own, courtesy of their illustrious grandfather's musical genes. The second generation of the Marley Empire has been tremendously successful, achieving commercial success as well as garnering accolades and 12 Grammy Awards over a span of 4 decades. This second wave was led by none other than the subject of today's video in Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers. This band was comprised of 4 of Bob Marley's 11 children and had Ziggy Marley on the guitar and vocals, Stephen Marley on the vocals, guitar and drums, Cedella Marley on vocals, and Sharon Marley also on vocals. Led by Ziggy, the band had a 24-year run that saw them sell millions of records, play countless sold-out concerts, bag 3 Grammy Awards, as well as 4 Grammy nominations. Undoubtedly, among the most successful reggae bands in the immediate post-Bob Marley era. But for all their success, the group has had its own fair share of critics who have poured scorn on the quartet's achievements, labeling them as being nothing more than simply prepackaged products of the biggest brand in reggae, spoiled privileged kids not deserving of all the flowers that they've gotten. The idea for this video came a few days ago while in the middle of a fiery debate about the credibility of the Marley kids in the world of reggae music. Let's take a look at the question, how good really were Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers? To get to the bottom of this conundrum, let's dive into the group's backstory. The origins of this quartet can be strangely traced to the proclamation signed by the United Nations Secretary General, which declared 1979 as the International Year of the Child to draw attention to the problems affecting children in the world over. But Marley wanted to play a part in this cause, so he brought his 4 eldest children together to record a song which he had composed 4 years earlier, and the song was called Children Playing in the Streets. The money from the song was pledged to the United Nations to help fund its programs for that year. That initiative became the spark for what would become Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers. Ziggy and Stephen that same year would get their first taste of life on the big stage when they made an appearance with their father at that year's Reggae Sunsplash. It was all child's play for the kids until Bob's tragic death in May 1981, when during a performance after the burial, Ziggy and Stephen joined the Wailers band and the I3s on stage and delivered a skanking session that was one of the high points of the event. Later that year, the group released their second single titled What a Plot, released under the Tough Gong record label. The track was a fundamentally solid performance, featuring Ziggy Marley's haunting vocals that sounded just like his father's, with excellent backing instrumentals from the Wailers band, not to mention great production by Errol Brown. The group spent 4 years getting ready and eventually released their debut album, Play the Game Right, in 1985, a 10-track compilation that boasted of the mercurial rhythm section of the Barrett Brothers, as well as another splendid vocal performance from Ziggy Marley. By all standards, a good album, but one that was dismissed by reggae purists for having a pop music feel that was far from the sinewy roots rhythms that their father was known for. The group made their debut at that year's edition of the Reggae Sunsplash and came back with their second album, Hey World, in 1986. The album showed progress and a more mature side to the group, with solid conscious lyrics and messages. And while they still had the pop elements of their debut, it boasted of a weighty roots reggae foundation that was courtesy of the superstar lineup of instrumentalists and production crew that included Earl China Smith, Sly and Robbie, and Tyrone Downey, all overseen by the keen eye of Mama Bear, Rita Marley, as executive producer, with solid tracks like Police Brutality, Hey World, and Give a Little Love, which was included in the soundtrack of the movie Men at Work, starring Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez. The album was fairly well received at home, but slightly more abroad, especially in the US. One striking feature about the quartet was that despite the criticisms by fans expecting them to be just like their father, they made up their minds to do their own thing. You either accepted their hybrid modern reggae sound complete with pop rock elements, or you just didn't. Ziggy was the arrowhead of this direction, then in his late teens, which is the usual period for self-realization in most youth. He always rebuffed journalists attempting to make comparisons between his father's music and his own. In one interview with Spin magazine in 1989, he famously said in his flawless patois, "Me is Ziggy, me is my own self, not me father, not me mother, you understand?" After sharpening their skills on the touring circuit with the I3s and Nadine Sutherland, they went back to the studio inspired by their recent signing to Virgin Records in 1988 and recorded their third album in the phenomenal Conscious Party, which became the group's breakout work, announcing their entrance to the big leagues. With classic tunes like Tomorrow People and Tumbling Down, all backed by Ethiopian reggae superband Dalol, who Rita Marley had recruited in place of the original Wailers band, though she retained the services of Earl China Smith. The album backed the group their first Reggae Grammy in 1989 and sold 1.5 million copies. They followed this smashing success with their next album, One Bright Day, which I personally consider to be just as great as Conscious Party, a truly solid and legit reggae album with timeless classics like Black My Story, One Bright Day, and my favorite in the effervescent, joyful and excellent Look Who's Dancing. The album wasn't as commercially successful as Conscious Party, but was a critical smash that earned the group their second Grammy back-to-back in 1989. The band was on fire, touring with Australian rock band In Excess and putting in sensational live performances, from Ziggy doing his thing on lead vocals and guitar, while Steven now was the creative dynamo of the group with his production inputs, songwriting and his fantastic toasting talents as well, while Sedella and Sharon provided beautiful backup vocals reminiscent of the I3s, but complemented by animated, high-precision epic dance moves that were a delight to behold. Their next album, Jamaica, came out in 1991 but failed to do as well as previous releases commercially, even though it was a critical success. It was nominated for a Grammy but lost to Shabba Ranks' Raw As Ever in 1992. They released 3 more albums which bagged Grammy nominations before winning it for the third time in 1998 for their album Falling Is Babylon. The group would release their last album in 1999's Spirit of Music and embark on a staggering world tour before disbanding in 2002. Ziggy and Steven went on to highly successful solo careers, each taking home the Grammy Award at different times. Sharon Marley went on to manage Ghetto Youth International, an NGO owned by the Marley siblings, and also became curator of the Bob Marley Museum, while Sedella became CEO of Tough Gong Records, as well as the owner of a clothing line that designed the Jamaican Olympic team's uniform in 2012. But despite the glittering profile of the quartet, there are lots of naysayers that refuse to give them their flowers. The criticisms have ranged from assertions of them not being a real reggae band due to their sound, which has elements of rock and pop, down to assertions of them getting Grammys handed to them, regardless of other artists and albums nominated alongside them. And not to mention insinuations that they were at best average artists individually, but enhanced by the best instruments that money could buy, courtesy of the Marley machine. Of all the arrows aimed at the group, the only criticism that I could personally relate with was the tendency to sometimes infuse a glossy sound that lacks the gritty roots reggae edge that we enjoyed from Bob Marley and other artists from the golden generation of reggae. Personally, I prefer my reggae 100% pure without any infusions from other genres. But despite these infusions, the melody makers still found a way to channel these external influences and wrap them up in a solid roots reggae foundation in a manner that was irresistible even to many core roots reggae fans. That in itself is testament to their immense quality. It's important to note that the group also came up at a time that the taste in Jamaican music had largely shifted away from roots reggae to dancehall, and as a result, their music found a more devoted fan base overseas, particularly in America. Many music commentators have said that the Melody Makers' kind of reggae was an international sound, not a Jamaican one, and was considered almost bland from a local rude boy perspective. The most widely debated topic is that of the group's Grammy Awards. If you take a look at the first Grammy that they won for Conscious Parties, the other nominees that year for Best Reggae Album were Toots and the Maytals' Toots in Memphis, UB40's self-titled album, and Hanging Fire by Jimmy Cliff. It's pertinent to note that these 3 other albums were loaded with even more pop and rock elements than the Melody Makers' Conscious Party. When you consider the fact that the group had 4 nominations, which were also lost, the allegation of it always being rigged in their favor just falls flat on its face. But the assertion that the Melody Makers were average artists is one that I totally disagree with. Ziggy Marley is a phenomenal vocalist, guitarist, and songwriter, while Stephen Marley is among the greatest instrumentalists, songwriters, and producers in the world, and Cedella and Sharon are extremely good singers and performers. While they might have had the titanic platform of the Marley Empire to help hone and develop their skills, their immense natural talent can't be denied. Their rise to success was a rarity in an industry where most musicians rise from nothing, just like their father. So to answer the question of how good was Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers, I personally rank them as an amazing and classic reggae band with a globally focused outlook that wasn't always in tune with the prevailing sounds of the Jamaican streets, but were capable of bringing it just as hot if required. Like most children of super successful people, I believe their greatest challenge are the constant comparisons to their legendary father by a fan base that was counting on them to fill their father's unbelievably large shoes. But all in all, they were an outstanding and highly talented reggae unit. Do let me know what you think about the group in the comment section below. Thank you for watching the video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.